Lytudiep, her small body covered in mud. Her eyes dark from lack of sleep and worry, outshone with extreme fear. The information she had just heard was like a thunderbolt, tearing apart the fragile shell of peace she had just had. The gentle, simple man she believed was her biological father, the one who had brought her a bit of family warmth after so many years of coldness, turned out to be just a pawn in a dark game. Hung. That name rang into Tien's head like a scream of hatred. It turned out that all these storms were caused by the evil hands of that former secretary. Greed and hatred had turned a woman into a demo in human form. She wanted to harm Jack, wanted to destroy the happiness that she and he had just begun to blossom. In the dim darkness of the forest, Tu Tien tried to find her way. The phone had fallen while running away. She was completely alone and no one helped her. The rustling of leaves under her feet, the chirping of insects echoed in the quiet space, increasing the loneliness and helplessness in her heart. But lýtửtiên was not someone who gave up easily. Many years of hardship had forged her strong will. She had once fought alone against the coldness of her husband's family, the cruelty of her heartless husband. She had once lived a miserable life in a cave, relying on the pity of others to survive. So, why did she have to surrender to fate now? In the dark night, Tu Tien's eyes flashed with a determined light. She had to escape, she had to find Jack. She had to expose Hung's evil face and save that reluctant foster father. She began to move carefully, listening to every sound around her. Darkness covered everything. The tall trees were like ghosts reaching out to hold her. Tu Tien followed the small paths, trying to keep herself from getting lost deeper into the dense forest. In her heart, Jack's image appeared clearly. His gentle face, warm eyes, and smile always brought her peace of mind. She couldn't let him face danger alone. His love warmed her heart, gave her faith in a bright future. She had to protect this love. The later the night, the more tired Tu Tien felt. Hunger, cold, and fear surrounded her. But she was not allowed to stop. She had to keep running for herself, running for Jack, and running for her adoptive father, who was being controlled. In the quiet night, Tu Tien's soft footsteps still echoed steadily, like a silent oath of a small woman with extraordinary strength. Her escape had just begun, and ahead was a difficult and dangerous journey. But with love and strong will, Lytudiep believed that she would overcome everything. Jack's heart tightened when he saw a series of missed calls from Tu Tien's number. An ominous premonition surrounded him like a cold wind. The feeling of unease and anxiety invaded every cell, making him unable to sit still for another second. "Mom, something bad is happening," Jack hurriedly informed Lois' mother, his voice full of urgency. Lois, who was a sensitive person, could see the seriousness of her son's expression. She asked worriedly, but Jack only had time to reassure her a few sentences before rushing out of the house. The car sped away in the dark, tearing apart the quiet night. Jack's mind was filled with thoughts. Why did Tu Tien call so many times? What happened to her? He tried to call back but only received long, hopeless beeps. Soon Jack arrived at Tu Tien's small farm. The simple wooden house was quiet, without a single light. He quickly got out of the car and called out her name loudly, Tu Tien. His call echoed in the quiet night. Only the rustling of the wind responded. Jack's heart felt like someone was squeezing it. He ran around the small guard, calling her name over and over again. Everything was still intact, only a terrifying silence enveloped him. He saw Tu Tien's familiar flashlight lying on the steps. His heart was even more confused. Seeing Tu Tien at the farm, Jack decided to expand his search. He remembered the cave by the roadside where he and she had first met. A thought flashed through his mind. A strong feeling urged him to go there. He drove along the familiar road. He asked the houses along the road. They said that in the evening they saw Tu Tien looking for her father, the headlights shining into the pitch-black darkness. Jack was both worried and hopeful. He prayed that Tu Tien was safe, prayed that the worst would not happen. His footsteps echoed in the quiet space. "Tien, are you here?" Jack called out, his voice choked with worry. His flashlight shone everywhere, illuminating the damp cliffs and the dim shadows. No one answered. Frustration rose in Jack's heart. He couldn't believe that Tu Tien had disappeared without a trace like this. But Jack didn't give up. He knew Tu Tien was a strong person. No matter what happened, she would try to find a way to let him know. He continued to search around the pine forest, hoping to find any trace of her. Time passed. The night became deeper. Jack kept calling her phone, but only a long ring answered him. The anxiety in Jack's heart increased. He couldn't imagine what was happening to Tu Tien. He only knew that at all costs he had to find her. His love for her was too great for him to accept losing her. Jack's search for Lizzie Shane in the pitch-black night had just begun, carrying with it both extreme anxiety and a strong belief in his love. The faint tire tracks on the small dirt road led deeper inside. The scattered instructions from the people on the roadside only added to Jack's unease. He kept calling Zishan's phone number, a small ray of hope flickering in the dense darkness. Suddenly the car headlights shone on a small object lying in the weeds on the side of the road. Jack hurriedly stopped the car, his heart pounding in his chest. He immediately recognized Zishan's familiar phone. It was there. The screen shattered, as if it had just undergone a strong impact. An extreme fear spread throughout Jack's body. Why was Zishan's phone here? What had happened to her? He clenched the phone in his hand, calling out loudly, tearing apart the silence of the deserted forest. Tu Tien. Where are you? Amidst the wind whistling through the leaves, Jack seemed to hear a faint sound echoing back. A soft Jack almost disappearing into space. His heart stopped beating for a moment. It was Tu Tien's voice. Tien. Where are you? Say it out loud. Jack shouted, his voice trembling with joy and worry. He strained his ears to listen, trying to orient himself to the faint sound. Just now you are in the forest. Tu Tien's voice echoed back, broken and full of pie. Without a second's hesitation, Jack grabbed the flashlight tightly, rushing towards the sound. He ran while calling her name, the flashlight beam sweeping across the tall trees, trying to find any sign of the girl he loved. Tien, I'm here hanging there. Jack's voice echoed throughout the forest, carrying with it extreme anxiety and a burning hope. He knew Tu Tien was in danger, and he had to find her quickly before it was too late. Jack's flashlight shone on a large tree trunk, and he saw her. Lytudiep was huddled under the tree, her body covered in dirt, with a few scratches on her body. Her face was pale, her eyes closed. Tien Jack rushed to her side, knelt down, and hugged the thin body of the girl he loved into his arms. Tien, how are you? Hearing the familiar voice, Tu Tien opened her eyes slightly. Seeing Jack's worried face, a tear rolled down her cheek. She tried to reach out to touch his face, a weak smile on her lips. Jack, you're here. Her voice was hoarse, then she fainted in his arms. Jack held her tighter, feeling her weak breathing. His heart ached. He knew Tu Tien had gone through something terrible. But at this moment, the most important thing was her safety. He didn't rush to ask, OT, wanting to make her more scared or tired. Gently picking Tu Tien up, Jack carefully walked out of the forest. He held her in his arms, feeling her smallness and weakness. His heart was filled with boundless pity and love. He would never let anyone hurt her guy. Gently putting Tu Tien in the car, Jack quickly drove towards the nearest hospital. He looked at her lying motionless on the passenger seat, his hand tightly holding hers, giving her warmth and peace of mind in Jack's heart. He silently promised to always be by her side, to protect her, to help her overcome all difficulties and storms. The only thing he wished for was for Tu Tien to be safe and healthy. Thank you for following our story.